brought up through the course of the year for further discussion and possible action and program implementation. And just highlighting a few of these is the work we've done with Buxton, and we're going to get into a little more of an update later in this meeting. But just for this particular item, resolving food desert situations in the Desert Highlands community was a very important issue for the subcommittee, and we went to the extraordinary step of hiring Buxton to do a retail analysis and help attract some grocers into the community, and so we'll be talking about that a little later.
And Jay, I don't know if maybe we just want to talk briefly on, sure, any comments on any of these?
Right.
Just so folks know, I have had some meetings, and now the city manager and I, with one possible market who was looking throughout Palm Springs, and talked to them about incentives if they are in one of the two locations, one near Palm Canyon Racquet Club and one on Indian and near San Rafael. Not in your center, by the way. The other one, as possible locations that we would then be able to consider incentives with the goal of just trying to end that food desert up there. So that is moving forward, and to the extent we have data from Buxton that you can get to us to sort of support that, I think that would help. They already did the traffic studies.
Right.
That show that there is definitely enough traffic there to generate a supermarket there. So I think that's really been helpful as well. Yeah. So we're continuing that. I think the last conversation was about 10 days ago. So.
And in addition, establishing strategic partnerships to really leverage what we can do for economic development programs in Palm Springs, perhaps working with the College of the Desert, working with neighboring cities, other possible opportunities there. And I think as we're finding, having a legislative slate, some kind of a program to track and monitor economic development legislation as it makes its way through the state. Last year, there were some very potentially impactful programs that ended up not being moved forward to become law. But just knowing that there's other interests throughout the state for types of programs that would benefit Palm Springs is an important part of I think, the work that the subcommittee does here. And as you can see, other items from the business community forum have been identified. High-speed internet, rising rents for businesses, other issues that are out there that have been discussed at other cities are establishing a bank. Municipal bank, something to consider. And are these items for the subcommittee to consider moving forward on, or we can have that discussion as we move forward. Thank you.
Great, thanks. So this is a good time just to really think about what areas we want to be looking at and get some other ideas for the next bunch of agendas as we move forward. Just want to raise a couple. So folks know we have had, at this group, we're no longer a subcommittee, but we are still a meeting as liaisons. We have met on the last meeting. We focused entirely on community workforce agreements as well as labor peace agreements with a real focus on benefits and hiring of Palm Springs residents. We decided that should be a full council discussion item, and that is on tomorrow night's council agenda. So we'll be talking about both community workforce agreements and what the community benefits would be to those for construction projects that are city projects over a certain value and what that might be, as well as labor peace agreements, which are required of certain size companies in the cannabis industry, and how we can best utilize those also for priority jobs for our residents and good paying jobs for our residents in that growing industry. So those are things that will be on council agenda tomorrow night. So if people are interested in, please come to tomorrow night's council meeting. Other things I just had written down, one other thing that I'd like to see on a future agenda, maybe the next one, and I know Jay's already been working on it, but last weekend I was in Temecula and I spent time in Lake Arrowhead and looking at some of the programs that are run there. Lake Arrowhead, where the Merchants Association does concerts on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, which keep people Jenny McLean was at one with me when the chamber had their retreat up there. But, things like that to help bring people into Palm Springs, and also as things our residents, right, can enjoy, and it's nice to do both. In Temecula, their downtown has a Wi-Fi district, and they have speakers running through the downtown, so they play music all day and into the evening. Really nice thing, really gives an atmosphere, right, in the community. So looking into those kind of things, I think as we look at, business districts, what we could do in different business districts, that would really just make it a more appealing thing for residents and visitors and make it more enjoyable. You think in the holidays, it could be, Christmas music. I mean, there's really great opportunities we could do. So I'd like us maybe to make, that would be a lengthy talk, but how we can make this sort of some fun things, right, for our residents and for visitors about Palm Springs that we could add to it. David? And
I
use
wanna
your,
talk about another item, but maybe you're still on this.
well, we're on sort of planning for the year.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, but.
You have to use the mic.
Use the mic, please.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So, it looks lonely as only 14 items, so I want to add a 15th item, which is tourism, economics, and analytics. As I look around the room, I think pretty much everybody here is dependent on tourism, and it's been my passion. I've discussed this with Christy, and I think with you at some point, that we have a really good understanding, deep understanding of the economics and analytics of the primary industry that's driving this city. So I think that's something that would be
Yes,
good
and-
to add here.
And one of the things that we are doing, I don't know if, Rob, if you want to come up and explain sort of the study that we're.
Joe's got that.
Oh, you're going to be discussing it, not the survey, but sort of the assessment we're doing of our tourism marketing and dollars that you're doing through your role as heading up the convention center.
Sure. Good afternoon, good evening. I'm Rob Hampton. I'm the general, oops, see,
Yeah, it has to be green.
and it's green.
No, that's right. There we go.
Now it's-
Thank you. Rob Hampton, the general manager of the convention center, and also work with the Bureau of Tourism. We started an assessment yesterday. We found a consulting company to really come in and look at all of the different organizations that are funded through the city. Organizations like the Bureau of Tourism, the Greater Palm Springs Convention and Visitors Bureau, PS Resorts. Really, the whole purpose of this assessment is to understand and see if there are duplications, if there are, who we would think would be best suited to handle some of those particular items. So it's really a full assessment of what the city's investment is to all of the tourism entities. It started yesterday. We had to get Mary Jo before she left. We had to get all that institutional knowledge down, so that is really the base. We hope to have that, our plan is to have the full report along with recommendations from these consultants, these experts in our industry on some best practices and how to move forward.
Okay. And then, which is related but not exactly what David's talking, so any thoughts you have, or Mary Jo, or anyone else around the table with some expertise on sort of what David's talking about, which is very related, which is the analytics of who's coming here, how long they're staying,
What are the drivers?
right, what drives them to come here. I know we've been doing some more intercept studies, so, and we'll talk about the 60-mile radius study is on the agenda, but I think that ties into it, of course. So how would that fit in, or what data do we now have and what is missing?
I think that's exactly what this study will do. It will tell us, the information, Visa View is a great example, and it's something we rely heavily on. And that's something that we should continue. Maybe there's a recommendation, again, from the experts saying that, other markets are using certain studies. So it is going to be a recommendation to us to look into those different types of those different types of companies, so we can get that kind of information. Please, Mary Jo.
The only thing I would add, and Aftab, you probably can weigh in on this because you remember, it was 18 years ago, 17 years ago. We did do a fairly complete visitor study, and many of the hotels helped with their guest bases. Now, privacy laws have changed. Those are different now. However, many of the brands Aftab, and at the time mine included, got approval to be able to assist the city with that very in-depth study, and it actually used the visitor databases. So it would be a project of bringing the smaller hotels and the larger hotels together to talk to those visitors too. So that would be another way to do it.
Okay. Anything?
Bruce was whispering and vacation rentals.
Yes, yes.
I think everybody knew.
Yes.
I think
How
everybody
could I
knew what he was
forget?
whispering.
I didn't even need him to stand up for that. Great, thank you. That was helpful, thank you.
Thank you.
So I think we'll get some public comment here, feedback. So hopefully everyone has a copy, and if not, we can get you another copy of these planning topics. You saw the notes that were attached to the agenda from our session, our town hall, where we got a lot of public input. So the goal here tonight is to get your feedback about what this committee's or our liaison role priority should be in the next year or so, in the next few months, in the next few meetings. What should we be focusing on? What do you think is the most important business retention, economic development policies, either on this list, or we could add some that we should be focusing on? Jeffrey, did you have fun?
Well, yeah, one thing which I'm not sure is the most important, but what you're talking about in Temecula is similar to what we've talked about before, in that we have different business associations who are interested in creating their own downtown experiences that don't rely on having, major events bring in or a certain theme come in. So I agree the idea of the music. I agree if there's something in this, there's a lot of interest in doing things in the summer, particularly on Sunday nights. I think, I don't know whether it's this meeting or some meetings, to figure out, part of the issue is that in doing these, we have to have some idea of a budget to do for different events, because if you're trying to get all the merchants together to agree on a date, you have to know, or an event, you have to know that you have a certain amount of money that you could spend, and it's not huge, to get them all on board, and then you would have to go for the finalized, but to do it the other way around, to try and get approval and then go out and get everybody on board and then get approval, you could end up in a situation where it doesn't happen fast enough. It's just sort of dealing with a lot of the merchants that I deal with, certainly on Main Street, are not that involved. So you have to go specifically and say, this is exactly what's going to happen. This is what we can provide ahead of time. And then they sort of get on board as opposed to being part of the planning process. I think arenas is different because everybody's involved, but not so much downtown.
Yeah. And so Jay has been working on reaching out to other cities on how they do programs. One of the things, we had asked and he's working on is how we do this so it's not just downtown, right? But we do this citywide. And do you think by the next meeting we should have something we can send out as some ideas?
Yes, I've spoken.
I've seen some
with
that you've sent us,
representatives
so-
from Lake Arrowhead. Long Beach has interesting examples. Thank you, Dave, and I believe San Francisco we can look into. Temecula I will take a look at and see how they structure the funding of their program. Lake Arrowhead's very interesting.
Right.
Because it's not a BID, so that may create some new opportunities doing something similar to that.
Yeah, so why don't we put that on, hopefully, if you think you'll be ready, on the next meeting agenda as one of our main discussion points.
Just to add one thing.
Yeah.
I'm saying it as Main Street, but also as a merchant, that we have in the past just opened it to the whole city, our events. And I think that should happen more so. If somebody's creating an event, doesn't always just have to be focused on, somebody's creating an event that involves lots of merchants, it doesn't have to just be downtown. And even with our other events, we involve Smoke Tree and South Palm Springs, and I think that could be expanded. You just need to have a core group organizing it.
Right.
Mayor, we do have Stephen with us, and he happens to run the Lake Arrowhead Resort for, I believe, 5 years? 5 years. And maybe he can give us some input about, Jay, the program you're talking about.
Well, I think you spoke to Leslie McClellan recently, and she's been in that town for almost 30 years, so that's your good resource right there. But the village owners pays for that entertainment. And the Merchants Association pays for some of that advertising.
Go ahead.
No, I think you were all poised, David. So a couple of the things, and Dave Powell from Desert Business Association might help too if people introduce themselves for the first time, if you wouldn't mind. Thank you. I did. I was talking a couple of months ago when we were talking about creating business districts. Arenas District was created, Main Street's there. And it's not so much taking things away from them, but I think giving a little bit more establishment to some of the local areas and creating these districts and making them cohesive. That's one of the things I've sent out and Jay referenced. The other things I think are really important, especially with our smaller businesses, continuing to work on the business education workshops, seeing what we could do on some grassroots education for them. And the internet would be great for both the businesses and for the public. But finally is to see what we could do to ensure that local businesses are included in bidding processes, especially with any contracts that come in front of the city coming through, that whether or not they get them, that's not the important thing, but just that they're included. We have an arena coming, we have other contracts coming through, and it'd be nice to make sure. I know Jeffrey brought up before at the airport when the concessions over there. I just think it's important that we make sure our local businesses are included in that process.
Thank you. Did you have a comment?
Sure. I would just like to note, and I think this will be helpful ultimately. Right now, and council had given us resources, we, on our position in economic development, we've rebranded it into Central Business District Administrator. So the vision and goal there is to have that position back where that individual is focused on downtown businesses, downtown organizations, uptown, downtown arenas, the whole central business district, and you could extend that out to Sunny Dunes and up to the north end with the Racket Club, where they can help with these kind of events, help to organize, in essence, to be a liaison and a coordinator, and really focused 10 hours a day. And that will be a contact and working with you to kind of coordinate all this stuff. So I think that will be an important position to get back on the ground. And hopefully I'll have applications to interview within about 10 days.
Great. And David, do you have ideas? So take out that core part, right? We have other small pockets and business districts throughout the city. The best way to really do the outreach to engage them as well, so we can do things to help businesses throughout the city. Obviously, there's more concentration in the core, but we have business districts, on the very north, we have districts south and east, we have, just east of the airport. I mean, they're all through the city, and how we engage them in the process.
Yeah, in summary answer to that, Mayor, one of the things that council has allowed us to do is, so with the extra capacity now we are building in community and economic development on the social service side, that's going to allow us to have the positions freed up on the economic development side that are going to do in not only the central business district, but the outreach, other things as well. So I think that's going to be a key thing. The capacity we're now going to have, you're going to see some changes in how we're able to do our outreach.
And think about how we do outreach beyond the organized groups, even for this meeting, right? I think moving forward will be important, because we now have, organized groups are all here, which is great, but we definitely want to reach the ones who aren't as organized.
So the key is having someone thinking about this
Yes.
all the time. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, and helping them. No, absolutely. Or become part of other organizations, right?
Yes, Dean Levine, Arenas District. I don't know what you would categorize it as, but I think in 2 years, this is going to be a very, very different city with the arena, with how it's going to operate, and possibly the economy. We may be facing coronavirus, all of that stuff. Is there a way that we can study, prepare for that in arming businesses with how to handle the change that's come into this city? Because I think it's going to be a very, very different city in 2 years. With all of the new developments that are opening up, it's going to create its own set of challenges, but also opportunities. Parking's on the list, but it's just a different city. So I don't know how you would study it or prepare us for it. But
I mean, and they're sort of, and they're two different ways of, right? I mean, preparing for a potential economic downturn or a drop in tourism, and, we've already been talking about, is there reallocation of tourist dollars to focus more on domestic tourism in this next window, right? When the arena opens, you're going to get a lot of the 60-mile study that we're going to hear about. You're going to get a lot of people coming in for events, both from further away, but also driving. And those are all things we need to look at, yeah. And on parking, by the way, it's on the list, but we are going out to hire a consultant to take the parking data that we had to look how the arena will impact that. So that's moving forward already. But we'll bring back the results, of course.
Thank you. It's a good point. Any other comments about what our priorities should be for this group in the next upcoming meetings?
Hi, it's Bruce Hoban again. I just want to get a clarification on 7. So, 10, 15 years ago, San Francisco, other cities, New York, the city spent money putting up Wi-Fi, free Wi-Fi, because the cell phones couldn't handle it. You were back on 2G and 3G, and now we're moving into 5G. So what are we really trying to get from that? Does that need to be on there?
Well, I would say that is sort of a placeholder because the technology changes so quickly. Just as you said, you install one infrastructure backbone and then next year it's something else. Actually, probably where it's going to go is we're looking at incentivizing the private sector cell companies that they're going to be providing this. And so it may not be Wi-Fi, it may just be through their.
And I would really support
Yeah.
that because right now, we have these big events like we have Pride and other things that jam downtown. I mean, these cell systems cannot handle the capacity right now. We just have too many people in there. So anything we can do to take that next step up or get some more towers in, hide them behind buildings or something. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments? Anyone in the audience, you also are welcome to speak. We'd love to hear your comment. We have a microphone that we can bring to you if you need, so just raise your hand if you'd like to share your thoughts. I see people being nudged back there. I don't see any I don't see any hands.
Elbows.
No one else.
Can I mention one thing? I
Sure.
think would be important as part of, that ties into a lot of these things, would be driving more downtown traffic or extending the stay over for the summer months, where it's especially, the hotels still have weekend traffic, but a lot of merchants have problems because people still don't want to come out. And so the idea of having, a nighttime event on a Sunday or concerts or things would have tremendous impact on the merchants, especially during the summer period where it's very slow and nobody wants to walk.
Thank you.
Madam Chair? Since this is sort of like a goal in terms of traffic flow, I'm just curious, now that we've had a little bit of experience, is there any additional feedback from this group on Indian two-way conversion?
Terrific.
Terrific or horrific? Horrific. That's my thought, but I don't know if I'm in the minority on that.
I've noticed continually when you're coming north that something's wrong with the timing at Tockwitz, between Tockwitz Light and the Andreas Light and Baristo, and it just piles up in there.
Yeah.
Those are being fixed. Those,
Okay.
you should be able to get all three. Feedback I got, the Main Street Board was everyone there liked it at the meeting, and same from the hotels. People who, drive through the city don't like it because it does slow down the cars, but that was part of the goal and why we got the grant money was public safety issues, so it's not meant to speed cars through. But there's definitely more work going on the lights, especially also the short streets we've talked about. If you're turn off Palm Canyon and you go east, those back up because there's not enough time, and we've talked about the restricted red light potentially going away because that you can sit for a long time there. So all that's continuing work on a project on that. So
I'd just like to ask if there's been any observation and data collected. These, our busiest times in the city are Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. The city offices are closed Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I asked somebody at engineering whether data was being collected. And how it's collected, and I didn't really understand the answer. It may be collected, I'm not really sure, I don't want to say it's not, but based on sitting in the traffic on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, I would just like to suggest that city staff get out there and have a real live look at what's going on.
Actually, this has been part of the refinement process. The company, the consultant, actually, the engineers that have put that in, they've been there on weekends. as part of the assessment. And I have been there, too, indeed. Yeah. So
Thank you.
the bottom line of this is there are several they call it split phases and protected turns. Those are being refined. That may or may not fix it, but your continued feedback will be important because there's more modifications can be made.
Anything else? So these are the topics, and I'm not sure if we need to make a decision here, if we want to prioritize or pick a few. One thing that I'll note too is that we had budgeted $300,000 for economic development that we had talked about using. So I know we use some for different projects, but thinking through too, if we have budget for this cycle left over, what should that go to? Should it be continuing or improving the programs that we currently have? Should it be for events? Should it be, what are your priorities there in terms of what we should budget or request the full council budget for economic development? If you have any feedback there, and then we'll kind of move on.
It's Bruce again. Jay, did we, or Mary Jo, did we sign something with GPS CVB to get the detailed breakout of the Coachella Valley-wide tourism economics study? We were offered that. Did we take action on it?
I think it's still under discussion.
Okay, because we talked about that, two meetings ago. For a small nominal fee, we can get this Coachella-wide study, but we can get a breakout of Palm Springs only if we pay an additional amount to the major contract that CVB is doing. And so I would just like to see us use it. Was
And I believe it was,
$12,000 or something.
yeah, exactly, and we should move forward. For just our city, we'll be collecting some great data to use it for making some important decisions.
Otherwise,
Yeah,
just.
I thought we were doing that, but if it's not approved, let's confirm that that's been approved.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So maybe the best thing is, as we talk about sort of the business district and the events, that'll take up a meeting at the next meeting, and then we'll decide the next meeting what's next based on what's going on. Because we tend to get these agendas so full, we don't get through everything, or we rush through things, and we don't get the benefit of the people around the table. And in the audience here, there's a lot of wealth of experience. And so really focusing in on one or two items a meeting, I think, would be best. And if there are other things, people can bring them up at the meeting, because we keep this informal that way. Does that work, Jay, for you?
Yes.
Okay. So I know we have some really interesting data we're going to be sharing
I know.
now, next.
Perfect. So you want to move on?
Sure.
Or did we say which ones we want to focus on next?
Well, I think talking about sort of the outreach in the business districts and what kind of events we can do, and that'll be some of the funding. Some of the funding, hopefully by then we'll have a better sense on potential incentives if we are going to get the grocery store on the north end, which may be a big chunk of that, but that's been a big priority, so.
I agree.
Okay.
Yeah,
great.
I agree. So in 11, creating business districts, and then the additional one that we talked about, events, merchants associations, extending, when it's busy in our city for businesses. So that sounds great. Next item is item C, results of the tourism survey.
So we've been asked to give an update to this committee on the Uniquely Palm Springs campaign, as well as the most recent visitor study. So if it's okay, I'd like to begin with an overview and update of Uniquely Palm Springs, and that will go into the visitor study. So I believe there is a video. Do I just do this?
From dining, to hiking, to shopping. Design adventure standpoint. Art museum, the architectural downtown, and literally revitalized Palm Springs. No longer a Rat Pack hangout. We have those.
So the city funded a marketing program for the 2019 and 20 fiscal year to reach out to Coachella Valley residents and what we call day trippers. So those are residents that are living within a 30 to 60 mile radius of the city of Palm Springs. Some of them may or may not be staying overnight, but they could provide incremental revenue to the city's tourism businesses. So what is Uniquely Palm Springs? You can see here, it was designed to build the brand awareness of our unique businesses within Palm Springs, also to help increase retail traffic, and as I mentioned, targeted visitors and residents. We actually began the campaign a year ago in February with grassroots efforts. So we had Ross Matthews help us during the launch. We did a large press release. We did other activities as part of the announcement. There's the mayor and I helping at the radio station at Ross's program. And we also included our media impressions of the kickoff here. We began spotlighting shops, stores, and boutiques on uniquelyps.com. So many of these blog articles that we've created have a corresponding video with a local business owner being interviewed and telling our potential and hopefully return visitors what they love about their own business. Uniquelyps.com was created. It's a microsite that contains information on those same locally owned and operated businesses. So it shows the places in our city that make us truly unique. It features articles written about from the perspective of a local, along with event listings and a robust social media interface. And speaking of social media,
From dining to hiking to shopping.
Design adventure standpoint.
Art museum, the Architectural and Design Museum.
Lulu's is just down in the middle of downtown.
our social media presence is growing. We began with postings and a small contest. Just last week, we added an Instagram giveaway that drew over 75,000 views in the first 6 days. That was our most recent venture, but over the course of the year, we've highlighted our locally owned businesses with weekly giveaways. We continue to send out monthly e-newsletters linking to those same videos and articles. There they are. The paid advertising was really where our budget for the year kicked in. The budget specifically for Uniquely Palm Springs allowed us to move beyond public relations efforts to get the word out. Our ad media programs are scheduled to run until the end of the fiscal year, June 30th. We're working with Spectrum Cable in these markets, and we ran a Uniquely Palm Springs 30-second spot beginning in the end of December. Spectrum's really been our tried and true platform that we've used. We've done a co-op with the CVB in the past to place our videos in the Drive Market, but we had never run in these locations before. So this is a new scope for us. We actually produced 2 videos. One was for the day trippers, as I mentioned, and one ran with a slightly more local feel. So through the end of January, we ran almost 6,000 spots. We're using Centro Media as a partner to deliver our digital display ads to our target audiences within those geographical boundaries that I just mentioned. Centro is also delivering our video as an ad through streaming video, which is called Connected TV. So our video is now appearing on Amazon, Sling, and Roku platforms. Specifically to Connected TV, we've learned that our videos are viewed 100% of the time by 45% of our audience. Speaking of the video, here is the Day Tripper. Can't get this song on my own.
Locally owned, globally loved. Discover Uniquely Palm Springs. Go to visitpalmsprings.com.
A few more updates on the Uniquely Palm Springs program include an activation that some of you saw that we're now planning. We saw this video and we used it for our inspiration. So this one was from a French railroad company to show the destinations that they go to. But our idea was to take one of our famous and fabulous Palm Springs doors and to go on tour and to go to festivals and events to outlying regional areas and to show, and some within the Coachella Valley to showcase Palm Springs. So we're currently fabricating the door. They just came from shooting the video today, and we're setting up the tour schedule, so we will be going on tour soon.
What will the video be like?
Well, we just got lots of assets of downtown, so, and of course of Palm Springs and all the unique things that go on. So we have to just put that together and we'll show you that. So hopefully we'll show that at things like the Redlands Market Night, Ukaipa Music and Arts Festival. We may put it down at Village Fest, who knows, so around. So with that, I wanted to move on to the visitor study.
Can we?
Oh, yes.
Just any questions on that, right, before Uniquely Palm Springs? And one, you've done such a terrific job getting this thing off the ground. I mean, really
Thank
amazing,
you.
so thank you. And,
those guys.
well, you know, a lot of the idea on this was sort of twofold. One, you know, with some more national brands with bigger marketing budgets coming in, how we could help highlight our local brands. But also, you know, one of the things, you know, we hear from our businesses is a lot of the tourism money goes to heads and beds, right? Comes up at the arenas a lot. And so this was really, going into this next thing, really came out of Uniquely Palm Springs, is that we don't do much to get people just to come in and spend the day. If they drink enough, they stay the night, hopefully, instead of driving. But, you know, to get people to come in, spend a day, which helps all our local, you know, businesses. And so that was sort of the impetus. And it's really gone in just, what, a year, a little over a year?
Mm-hmm.
Really an amazing amount of videos. And then, you know, those retail and other stores, you know, businesses can use those videos and help promote. And really highlights what makes Palm Springs such a great place to come, and for those of us who live here, to see the videos. And you sometimes forget what you have in your own city unless you see it. So I think that was the sort of impetus, and it's really the context of really gotten people's imagination, and seeing those numbers on the last one is really great. So thank you for that.
Yeah, Mr.
Any
Mayor,
questions or comments on that?
Just a comment.
Yep.
Doug Watson, College of the Desert. You know, as we think about the influences of social media 5 years ago and how it evolved, the commentary around connected TV is an extraordinary lever that perhaps as we bring together these organizations to think about ways in which to help promote the businesses and to drive opportunity, a connected strategy around how you approach the connected TV market and the information pieces that come about. Each business owner can influence their own social media site immediately, but to, you know, then to be able to lever that into a connected media strategy for these Roku boxes and all of many of the generation of the kids that work for me don't even have a cable in their home. They are entirely living on connected TV. And so
And I'm not a kid, by the way, anymore. But yes,
further
I've
affirmation,
cut the
I
cord.
guess, is the point.
And just thinking on College of the Desert, both with, you know, the Palm Springs campus, both having the hospitality focus, which we're thrilled you'll be running, but also sort of the digital piece.
Yeah.
There may be a great role for students to tie those together, right?
You know, I think the endless opportunities abound, as they say.
Yeah, so that's exciting.
Yeah, and there's no doubt. I think you mentioned the city is, over the next several years, with the addition of the arena and the addition of the campus, it's really going to bring that side of the community alive, and so we're excited to be part of that. But I wanted to weigh in on this because this space is, you know, we've been doing a lot of research on this space, and more than 50% of the world's population is on social media more than an hour a day. It's extraordinary, and the ability for connected TV to be the new frontier of fast communication. It's very affordable for people to do, and it's the next plateau. Well done.
Thank you.
Sure.
I think Jeffrey Bernstein, Destination PSP, the Uniquely Palm Springs is terrific. And we have anecdotal evidence of people walking into our stores saying, I saw you on a list, or I saw you on Instagram somewhere, and it's not usually from us. So, and it's probably from this, or a list of cool local stores to come to is usually what they say, or local businesses to go to. So it definitely has, besides just the views, they actually get them to walk into the store, which is great.
And one thing that we've just had an initial conversation with Rob about at the convention center is, as Palm Springs is moving to 100% carbon-free electricity, that the businesses who stay in 100% carbon-free doing something similar to Uniquely Palm Springs and really highlighting that. There are a lot of travelers who look for sustainability, and it's a real opportunity for us to brand us as truly unique in the region that way. So it's a great opportunity as well.
And just before I move on, it does take, we talk to our business owners all the time, but Jeff, Dean, all of you guys, just to give us some insight and help kind of not point the way, but really give us some real true understanding of what's important to you and what you wanted us to showcase. We really appreciate that. So I know there's two of them sitting here at the table, so.
Did you have a comment before we move on?
Yes, I actually had a quick question. So how did you mentioned 60-mile radius of where to air. And some of these, like Moreno Valley districts or anything like that, the cost of airing, it's sort of just, I don't know anything about it, but sort of the cost of airing in all these various areas, is it the same exact, how does that get determined?
This is Spectrum Cable, and as I mentioned, connected TV. So we normally have run Spectrum Cable in 2 shifts, if you will. We've done a summer program, which for Palm Springs is June through September. And then we've run another program in the fall. So we just basically switch the message. And then we don't run the Spectrum in the middle of the winter during the peak season. But so those are more expensive because a lot of it is dependent on population. So that's why those 2 different programs that you saw, we're running 2 different programs, 2 different videos, but they're also 2 different prices. That 30 to 60 mile ring is more costly than is the Coachella Valley.
I guess my question is, for some of these areas where the median income is, let's say 30,000 or 35,000, they're living, sort of within their means, and expanding into and traveling and tourism. I don't know if that's part of the budget.
This is a very good question, and it actually, if you dig down into the visitor survey that we took, what we found is exactly what you're saying, that in that 30 to 60 mile ring, the income is lower. But those are a lot of the day trippers that are coming. So they're not necessarily coming and spending the night, but they're coming in for the day. So again, it's not the core of the visitors that we're typically trying to inspire to come here, but they are really representative of coming to meet friends and family, socializing, dining, and then going home at night.
Okay, thank you.
Anyway, to his point, we completed a visitor's study in these geographical areas, and we wanted to, of course, learn more about these local and regional residents. So let's see. Some of the things we learned in the study, Palm Springs is already the top choice in the Coachella Valleys for day trippers coming to the area. So as you can see, out of all the people that did visit the Coachella Valley, 73% of them came to the city of Palm Springs. Not quite as many, but still the majority chose Palm Springs if they actually came and stayed overnight, if they lived there. Not surprisingly, Palm Springs is viewed as a great getaway. The top reasons were we can socialize and we can shop and dine with friends and family. The number of activities such as visiting attractions, taking a tour, shopping and dining were higher if you lived a little further away. So not surprisingly, if you made a decision to come for the day, they do more things. So It was also mentioned by about a third of the respondents that had not visited Palm Springs that they perceive Palm Springs as expensive. So we all know in the peak season, it is expensive. It can be. But the expensive perception has been lingering in Palm Springs for a very long time. And a lot of it has to do with celebrity. And so they will just look at the entire area as a very expensive place. So this is a good message for us in terms of our reaction to that. So our takeaways from this study was, one, there's an opportunity to capture some of the regional visitors who are staying overnight in the Coachella Valley, but not in Palm Springs, right? Also, there's an opportunity to educate people regarding this expensive perception, and that's particularly in the shoulder and summer months. So we've all worked before when times were a little tougher on couponing and discounts and all of that, but it's really the perception of value for money spent that we really need to drill in when we are marketing to that area. We should continue to portray Palm Springs as the place to play, both to the Coachella Valley residents and the regional residents, as sort of the go-to place for to socialize and have fun in the sun and so on. To a lesser degree, we did find out that there is a lack of knowledge of actual things that are going on in Palm Springs, things like events, dates, that sort of thing. So what we take away from that is when we're marketing to that group, it's less inspiration and it's more information. So again, just tying in with things like the door tour or any of our marketing, our digital marketing, it's a different message than what we're doing to a visitor that may be in the drive market, even as close as LA. It's just a different message. And with that, I would like to take any questions, first of all.
How large was the survey?
2003 respondents. Yes, Dean.
Did you, any data demographic data, like age? of the
Yes, there's
respondents?
all the demographic data. So if you would actually like to see it, since I'm not going to be here, you can send an email to Rob Hampton, and he will get you a copy of that. So with that, I actually have a quick introduction. I know you all know Rob and have met him, but I'd like to introduce Chuck Steedman. He's the Executive Vice President of Strategy and Development for ASM Global, and he's here visiting us. So Chuck, thank you for coming tonight. Appreciate it. Sitting next to him, I think you all know Randy Garner. He's our Public Relations Manager. And sitting to his right is John Michael Cooper, who is our Marketing Manager. And I think most of you know these folks, but if you don't, please do. And they're going to be taking the team forward. So thank you.
I have a question actually for the businesses. When Mary Jo mentioned a lot of businesses were not aware of the events going on, do you find that, or the visitors, do you find that yourselves as businesses do have a good handle on all the events coming up, or
Events in town?
events in town?
No, I think people who are actively involved do, which is probably 10% of the businesses.
Okay.
And I would say most of them do not know what's going on, or they know something about it, but not any particular details.
And again, that will be part of the job of this position,
Yeah.
to make sure everyone is informed.
It's not so much, it's not that the information's not there, it's just that it's very hard to get some of these people, especially either the corporate people, the big national brands, or the very small mom and pops, single owner businesses, to pay attention.
And to Jeff's point, the convention center sends out their calendar every month. On visitpalmsprings.com website, every signature events are listed throughout the year, as well as the daily, weekly, and monthly events. So there's a place to find them. And again, the convention center actually sends them out. But, keeping up with email distribution, all of that. Everybody does the best that they can, but just getting people to go to that is always helpful.
Doctor, my view of having been an alumni of running hotels is that it's paradoxical. There is so many places to get so much information that
Right.
people run out of time to figure out where the meaningful information lives. And you just get caught up in the day-to-day of running your business. And if there was one central site that said, this is where you go to connect.
So you're saying we should be on TikTok?
Yeah. What's that?
I'm serious. I'm not kidding. Yeah, okay.
No, I'm
on TikTok.
No, I'm not. All I'm saying is there's a litany of information by every organization out there, but trying to get it in a reasonable time because you have an hour to go get things done before you're back at running your business.
Well,
The number of people who come to, visitors who come to town during an event and didn't know it was happening or know what it is very large. During, whether it's Pride, Modernism Week, Film Festival, the number of people, what's going on here? I didn't know this was happening.
and that's always a statement that everyone says. They could be right in front of them driving in, they're going, oh, gee, when did this happen? And it's like, Pride in Palm Springs, there's a surprise. But I think that part of the structure with neighborhoods and things, or with districts and with the events and marketing them better, one of the challenges some of the districts have, even Arenas has, is staffing to do that and to be able to promote that out and to push it out, whether it be social media or whatever. And so hopefully those are opportunities to coordinate. And you're talking about a central depository or a repository. I think all those things will help in the long run.
Your TikTok analogy is actually very appropriate, right? Just everybody get on that and you can control the speed of the message.
Maybe so.
To echo what you were saying, we are also so unique in that we have so many varying, diverse groups that come into town. So people who come into town for the film festival have no clue that there's a Thursday night street fair. As business owners, we have no clue about some events that are happening in this town. Oh, it's, the Tour de Palm Springs this weekend. It becomes news to us just because there's so many things that are going on in this town. So the hardest part is what venue is somebody really going to log in to visit Palm Springs versus some sort of, you type in Palm Springs and SEO finds what you're looking for. So that's the challenge. I mean, the only thought I just had would be like some hotels have, an itinerary of what's going on in that hotel that day. Maybe that's something that you can get to the visitors once they're here, is having an itinerary that's in each person's room or when they check in about what's going on in town. Because there's just so many things, and where are you going to go find out about it? Not everyone's going to log into the city websites and stuff.
I've raised this before about our TripAdvisor and how few sort of activities we have on our TripAdvisor, but we have a lot of events. So my friends come and they visit and they don't quite know what to do. And so people walk around downtown but don't know even. I've had friends who've come every year to Palm Springs and didn't know there was a casino because they never walked that other block. So I hear you. I think we've talked a lot about incentivizing other activities, but also just awareness of events. I didn't know it was the International Bear Convergence until I went to Chill this weekend, for example, and found that out. So it is hard. I understand it's really hard to know about all of the events, so whatever we can do as a city to share that information, I think the better.
We're not putting some digital billboards downtown that have what the events are that are going on and coming up.
Thanks, Mary Jo.
Along those lines, placed in a couple of strategic locations.
It's a great idea. I'm writing it down.
Almost in the like of the Times Square band thing, maybe. Yeah.
Right.
Something interesting.
Like we have banners, but those are.
If there's a reason why number 7 should move to the top of the list, it's coffee these days and having the ability to keep visitors connected through mobility is it's the driver.
Yep. Great, thank you.
Thank you. And before, I don't know, Mary Jo, if you're leaving, but Are you staying? We wanted to thank you. I was going to do
I
it
know.
at the end of the meeting. We wanted to do it, but maybe now, since you just gave that amazing presentation about all of your work. Thank you so much. So Mary Jo's retiring after 20 years plus years with the city. Thank you for all of your work.
And she'll be sending pictures from her year of travel, so,
We're jealous.
yes.
Great. So the next item, so we covered the results of the tourism survey and uniquely Palm Springs. So the next item is the Buxton Analytics update.
Right. Just going to give a quick update on the work that Buxton has been doing for the city. One thing, what I mentioned earlier is that we brought Buxton on board primarily to attract grocery and retail to the North Palm Springs area. But some of the other services they provide are mobile visitor analytics. And if you look in your package, what we wanted to provide you with are the criteria that they will be looking at. It looks like this. And so this is what Buxton does, is check cell phone data to see who's come to Palm Springs. And what we've tried to do is capture for certain events, are we getting Coachella Music Festival traffic here in Palm Springs? And is the tennis tournament driving business to Palm Springs? And with this type of information, it would help us understand better who's coming, which groups they fall into. Buxton will be using psychographic analytics to create a profile for the visitors that come to Palm Springs. And with that, you can identify comparable and other types of groups, identify source areas where the visitors tend to come from, and possibly identify visitors that are similarly interested with similar interests. So that is one. And I want to thank Mary Jo and her staff for helping come up with these details, because it goes a long way from what we initially had. What Buxton had proposed is that we use North Palm Springs, South Palm Springs, and I think we're going to get the same data for each one. So stratifying it this way, I think, gives us a lot more information that we can use. Now, I'm going to head over to the computer, because that's another aspect of what Buxton has done for us, and this is the retail recruitment piece. And at this point, Buxton has delivered to us 20 prospective retail matches for the North Palm Springs area. And these are the businesses they are recommending, and each of these has an analysis and recruitment package that Buxton will send to them with an introduction letter for the city of Palm Springs. And it would be incumbent upon us after that to follow up and work with each of these businesses to find out how interested they might be in coming here. So what I'm going to pull up is just one example. I think I went past it. Okay. And please bear with me. So the packages that Buxton has developed will look like this, what's coming up on your screen. And I did not want to print these out for each of these markets. And there's markets, there's food establishments, there's retail stores. But we will be having Buxton send this in with introductory letters again, and we can follow up at meetings with shopping centers.
A question, how did Buxton pick those specific businesses versus other similar businesses?
Well, Buxton's got this database of businesses, and what they took
Are they businesses they work with specifically?
These are businesses they do work with, and they've got the database includes other businesses too.
Okay.
So they selected those whose markets best fit the North Palm Springs area.
Okay, so that was focused on North Palm Springs?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
And as you can see, a lot of the data is by drive time. 10 minutes drive time seems to be the standard for traveling to your store of choice. And it also includes little heat maps of prospective customers, traffic analysis, household incomes. So the basic information that stores look for when they are identifying sites that work for them.
How
Yes.
does it work once you send it? Who works with the organization? With your
That'd be staff. We are not unfamiliar with negotiating with or identifying sites that meet each of these retailers' needs. I think in this case, it's going to be a longer-term prospect. We may have to work through a development project. Might be nice to have a full center developed with all these retailers involved, and then that will bring more synergy to whatever shopping center ultimately results. And keeping in mind, the challenge is, this is an area where to the north, it's a wash. To the west, there's not much. You run into mountains. And so your market's kind of limited. So the reason we use Buxton to do this is because other grocers we talked to looked at the area and said, you know, it's a tough market. You know, our customer's not there. So now we've got retailers that are a bit more viable that we think would show the most potential of getting something done here. And I know we're very interested in making something happen. We've looked at a lot of different possibilities for incentives. So this is the opportunity.
Question?
Go ahead.
So this was, the criteria wasn't, we've been talking about a year for about, you know, food desert and all, but they went in and looked at a whole bunch of criteria. They looked at future growth, look at the other opportunities where they're not just grocery, to be able to look at future.
Correct.
So-
You know, our direction was, you know, we would like to see grocery in this food desert area. So they knew that. They did provide a handful of grocers who fit the criteria or whose criteria fit the neighborhood. So that makes it that much easier for us to work with them.
Then might staff then prioritize this into looking at that with, you know, doing the food first? And, I mean, there's still development with Marilyn and others out there.
Right.
Do food first and try and focus on that, then talk about other services, et cetera, as we go through the next few years?
Well, and actually, that's a good question for the work we're doing into the future. Planning sort of a strategy for the economic growth of areas of Palm Springs, like North Palm Springs, Northern Palm Springs, which by the 10, where there may be some opportunities there, maybe not necessarily retail, but job-generating types of opportunities. So that type of strategy is something our council and liaisons get to chew on.
And with whatever they send, do they also look at sort of traffic data? Because that was one of the things in the meetings we've had with the potential market was, yeah, looking at the amount of traffic that comes in.
They
and
do.
the people who come in and leave every day
In
from
fact-
work who might shop, yeah.
In the package, and coincidentally, it's
counts
on the
there, so,
screen,
yeah,
the traffic
'cause-
is there.
Because I think that really helps too, make
Yeah.
the case, so that's great. Perfect.
And, let me run back over
I
here.
thought the star was Carl's Jr. It's not. It did. It's not the Carl's Jr. Makes sense.
And one other service Buxton offers to the city and city businesses is the local store marketing. So we've been pushing that out to the different organizations, asking them to get the word out. And for those of you who are not familiar, local store marketing is this type of information for each store that wants to grab and sign up for a license for local store marketing.
What does that mean, Jay? What is local store marketing?
Well, it helps, in a nutshell, businesses identify where their customers are, local customers. And then you'll see similar dots on a map around your business once you've set up your account. And another step is it will help you create a social media ad and push it out. And if you want to run a special for any given time, you can activate your local store marketing account to push the information out through social media, direct mail, email, Facebook, Google search, and website ads.
I think some of this information will come good as the development of the business districts too, as opposed to having licenses out willy-nilly. I think it'll be able to have those businesses direct and coordinate their efforts and be able to see overall what it is and have a nice organized way of doing it as opposed to everyone coming in just for themselves. And I think that'll, all these things, obviously I'm big on the business districts, but as you all know, but I think that this is another way to be very efficient in the method.
Right. Any other questions on any of those topics?
I have one. So this list that we have right now, it says 2020 operational status of retailers, but that's just for the northern end of Palm Springs.
That's correct. They identify a specific site to do the analysis on, and we told them Indian Canyon and San Rafael.
I see.
We just picked an intersection and thinking if it's applicable to a little further north on Indian, it's not that far away. It could be applicable to Racket Club and North Palm Canyon also, where there's some vacant sites, development opportunities. So I think it hits the North Palm Springs area with that particular address.
And they can pull these potential retailers for any part of Palm Springs, any address?
Yes. I can do it. I can do it on this software here. So right click. I have to remember that. Yeah.
Do we know if the retailers require an empty building or if they build ground up? My understanding is typically they look for an existing commercial building.
Some have preferred developers that they work with, but for the ones we're looking at, they may require a building, which is why I think the first steps may be working with the developer, identifying a site, securing the site, and then with this data in hand, getting the tenants into the shopping center. As the tenants sign, it's easier for the developer to get financing. So
I'm asking because I was going to raise it later, but it's relevant now. One thing that wasn't on our issues list that we've talked about in the past is we have vacant storefronts here, but vacant buildings, especially in South Palm Springs, around Smoke Tree, a lot of large restaurants that are just no longer usable as large restaurants because that's not the model anymore. So thinking through, we've talked a little bit about working with the tribe for those that are on tribal property, but thinking through how to use this data to incentivize retailers or businesses in those places that we just have empty buildings sitting.
yes, and that's the purpose of this website. It's not specific to the reports that Buxton generated, but it gives the city the ability to produce the demographic information, incomes and such, to let the different businesses know this is what you're looking at for this particular location.
So we could do that for example, South Palm Springs area or any area in the city and use that data and then start going out?
Yes,
Okay.
we could put together a brochure for a generic intersection and push that out or hand it out during conferences for business attraction.
A lot of those are on tribal, it's just different owners.
Different owners.
Do we have, I know
Uses for
Kathy
someone.
Van Horn had before worked with Buxton to help building owners or business owners to get this data? I know when I worked with the city of Palm Desert, they sat with me and gave me a list like this of potential tenants. So do we have staff, or how are we helping business owners or look, these are franchisees too. So some residents might want to open a
Yes.
franchise for these businesses that might be a good fit. So how do people get that information from the city?
Well, there's a couple different things. We could promote as business attraction, business creation, franchise opportunities. So for individuals who want to go that route, they're easy to find. It's practically a catalog and which type of franchise you want to run. Of course, there's fees involved, but they'd have to pencil it out and make sure it works out for them. So there's one, we could easily promote that. The other, for getting the information out there, right now, it would be just asking a city staff person with this access to let them know who's available where. And that's not too difficult. We also, as you know, we get calls from different businesses looking to locate in Palm Springs. They need to find a site of a certain size, and we have that access too. So it's just been easier for staff to look it up and provide feedback. In the past, I've done the maps of the city. You click on the location, you look it up, you pull up your demographic information, but I found they end up calling you anyways. So, you try to push it out and have everyone do it on their own, but it ends up in a phone call anyway. So it's, I think, better to have more robust information available, and staff can just feed that out to them.
It would be interesting to think about outreach to vacant building owners, property owners. Now that we have this data available, they might be interested that the city has data that can help them find business owners or franchise opportunities. Any other comments? Anything else, Jay?
That's it.
Thank you. The last item is council member, staff member comments. Do you have any comments? Do you have anything, Mr. Mayor?
Good.
So I think the only thing we wanted to cover is the dates of upcoming meetings and the schedule. So do you want to do that now, or do you want to do that later?
As we don't have that many folks here, but
Do we have our next meeting scheduled? Sorry to interrupt you.
March 10th appears to be the next scheduled meeting.
In 2
Yeah.
weeks?
Yeah, and we didn't really have it scheduled. That was the old schedule before.
Oh.
There was discussion of not doing it on the same week as council meetings for people who go to both, but that's mostly us and staff. But doing it on the other week is tough for staff because they're doing staff reports. We could maybe go to or Tuesday's generally good for people? Is 5:30, we've discussed that back and forth, better, one or the other? Does no one care?
No, I think that I was looking at that schedule, knowing it was just tentative, but, when you talk about November 10th, November 11th is a holiday, people take off those few days. September 8th is the day after Labor Day, so I think it's kind of one of those things you have to almost take a master calendar and
Yeah.
hopefully you could hit it.
So why don't we do that, and we'll send something out to folks. But Tuesday's generally a good day for people. I mean, that's the most important piece, and then we'll figure out the dates.
Great.
And we probably don't want to wait, till May, so,
Right, I think we want a meeting before May,
yeah, so probably April.
April. Perfect.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. We'll go ahead and adjourn. Thank you. Wow.